Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. I want to ask Joe Mavretic and Dennis Wicker, since colonial times, North Carolina's legislative body has consisted of part-time citizen legislators. In recent years, cost of election campaigns has escalated. Service in the legislature has required a larger amount of our lawmakers' time, and there have been proposals to make our legislators full-time or at least raise their compensation and expense allowances. Salaries, per diems, and mileage reimbursements haven't been raised in 20 years. What do you think of proposals to increase legislative compensation, Joe?
Well, first of all, I think they ought to go back for 20 years and adjust the current salaries to be what COLA would have caused them to be today.
Yeah.
Give them a cost of living up to date. Then they ought to index the salaries of legislators to the consumer price index and COLA, the inflation rates. However, if we had session limits, we would put that whole problem in a proper box, because if you have only 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 legislative days, that's all the cost that it's going to be for those legislatures.
Dennis Wicker, what do you think of this proposal?
Well, I like the concept of a citizen legislature, and I think it's worked well for us through the years. I worry about term limits in that I feel like if we put term limits on legislators about the time they develop expertise in a certain area, they are termed out, and this allows the bureaucracy to sort of run the government.
All right, but what we've ended up with largely are retirees and people whose jobs will allow them. The average citizen can't afford to run for the legislature, and so we don't have truly a citizen legislature.
Well, no, I disagree with that, Tom, because I think the intent of people who caused this to be a state was that the first thing you ought to do as a public citizen is you ought to be successful in your own personal endeavor. And after you have become successful enough in your own endeavor that you can then run for public office and use your expertise for the benefit of the people. Now, I don't think there's a whole lot of successful enterprise for somebody who's 26 years old.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Tom.
Finish your thought.
Well, I was just going to say that's a very strong argument, I think, for keeping the legislature. Even though you do get a lot of retired and a lot of wealthy individuals who serve in the General Assembly.
Used to have a lot of lawyers, not so many anymore.
And they're needed badly there, I think, so that is a problem. But I still think that we overlook the fact that serving in any public office is a noble calling. I still aspire to that. I still believe that. I may sound a little old-fashioned about it, but it doesn't matter from whence background you come. I think that if you have the desire to serve the public in public office, that you ought to run for office and try to do the best you can in terms of the economic side.
But back to this subject of legislative pay, and it is true, nothing has been done in 20 years, and I think the reason partially for it is that many lawmakers are afraid they'll get backlash from the voters. But Joe, there have been studies that indicate that these states that have legislatures that are full-time or even more highly paid in North Carolina are not any better than what we've got. They don't turn out any better legislation than what we get.
Tom, we have said on this show, I don't know how many times, that if you don't know how to buy a PhD to give you the results of a study that you want, you don't know how to shop for PhDs.
So you're saying it has no validity.
That's
Dennis,
exactly
what do you say?
Right.
No, I think that's right. I still stick by my guns on that. I do think that the way the legislature runs in North Carolina is a good model to follow, and I like it.
Would you say, by and large, during your lifetimes, that the legislatures have operated responsibly and reasonably and in the public interest?
Oh, absolutely, but you have to be very careful about changing structure. For example, this business about in the Senate, we're going to send every bill to appropriations and every bill to rules. Well, that kind of undermines the entire committee concept in the legislative branch of government in North Carolina. So
But haven't we done away with that in recent years anyway? Aren't they being basically run by caucus now?
Well, Dennis and I both served in days when you were not really a smart person if you went across what the Speaker of the House wanted.
Yeah, that was not a good idea.
Or the appropriations chair. Was
Graveyards are filled with-
Not a good
Yeah,
idea.
that's when your office ends up in the snack bar.
Yes, I understand that. But so, again, the question to you, would you say, in the main, over the last 25 to 40 years, our legislature has acted responsibly and in the best interest of the citizens?
I think it has. I think we have a legislature that has been responsive to the people, is close to the people. It's basically been corrupt-free, and I would suggest that we maybe tweak it, like Speaker Mavretic talked about. Maybe look at a COLA, so that they do these incremental steps in pay, and it's not 20 years or 40 years before you get an increase in pay. I think that is a little ridiculous. So I like where we are in North Carolina with what we have. We have clean government, and the legislature's a pretty clean body.
And I think most people would probably agree it's past due time for them to get a raise.
And I think session limits would eliminate a lot of the problems that we talk about on this show.
Not having to serve quite so lengthy a period every session.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for watching the After Spin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.